Welcome. We ended the previous session discussing about the term sheet. Term sheet is the sheet that document that contains all the terms and conditions of the investment, under which the investment will be monitored by the investors. Next in line is the due diligence. Due diligence is a process that is performed by the investors to understand the inner facts, meaning you may be presenting the best case scenario or the best that you want to make a projection, but investors would like to know deeper inside. They want to go deeper inside, and then they try to understand whether there is something hidden, means they do not want any nasty surprises later on. Suppose you have some case pending in a court of law, and there may be something like say 10 crore rupees is involved in the case. So, if that is suppressed when you talk to the investors, so they would like to explore and get to know. Maybe there is a supplier who is demanding a huge sums of money, and you are yet to make payment. So, things like that which may actually affect the performance of financial performance, or which actually will affect the value of your company. So, investors would like to know about that. It is almost like if you are looking for a match for some relationship, then you definitely do not want just to talk to the individual and then finalize. You definitely would like to probe inside and then get to know more details about the facts, about the family, about their behavior, their social status, etc. So, similarly, investors would like to know whether there is anything hidden before them. So, it is almost like they will be using intelligence to really get everything that might be hidden anywhere. So, it is like the art and science of due diligence. So, art part is like this. Their objective is to create or become suspicious. So, they will have lot of suspicions about the company, but then they will try to destroy those suspicions, meaning that they have a list of things that is supposed to be explored. So, they would like to cross all of them, so that there is nothing suspicious. And the science part is that they want to be comprehensive, they know what questions to ask and whom to ask and how to understand the real deeper facts. So, what they are looking for? They are looking for if there is any overdue tax liabilities that in any case you have to pay. So, if that is substantial and you have suppressed that. So, there are two things. One is they will, when they fund, they will be liable to pay the tax because their money is, you are using their money. Second is that they get to know that you have the habit of suppressing information. So, they will get both, meaning that if you are really suppressing, then it goes against you. Then there are inadequate systems, related party transaction, like suppose you are the founder, suppose you are a male person and you are paying salary to your wife, perhaps wife is not working. So, this is related party transaction, or maybe your wife has a business and you are selling to your wife and wife is selling to the market, to the customers. So, you are transferring profit to your wife. So, that is related party transaction. So, there may be many such things through which founders may siphon away money from the company and then create value elsewhere. So, that if any point of time somebody files a case against them, they can kind of insulate themselves from this kind of things. So, normally investors invest in the form of preference share or maybe convertible debt. Why this preference is like this? Investors are scared of future downfall or future poor health of the company. So, they want to ensure that they are well taken care of, means their situation is well taken care of. So, in case the company will be liquidated at some point of time, whether for high value or for poor performance, they want to see that they get their money before you get. So, we discussed about seniority of liabilities. So, if they invest in preference share, their seniority is higher compared to equity shareholders. So, that is one of the reasons why they prefer to invest in preference share. Debt comes even before that. So, if they can invest in convertible debt, they will even prefer that. We discussed about the pros and cons of preference shares, but we still have some points here. Preference shares represents quasi equity, meaning that it has both debt and equity characteristic features. It has features of then it does not give voting right to the holders, meaning investors will not have voting right, but then they have many other alternative ways of controlling the company. They do not really care about voting right. They get fixed rate of dividend, even dividend is not so much attractive, but this seniority of liability is more attractive. This dividend is performance driven, meaning that if you make profit, then you pay dividend, but then if you do not make profit, dividend gets accrued. So, eventually you have to pay. Then it has, as I said, seniority of at the time of liquidation. Now, the two terms will be very frequently discussed in the next few minutes moving forward. One is pre-money valuation, another is post-money valuation. Whether investors invest in the form of preference shares or convertible debt or equity, whatever that is, valuation is important. Valuation tells what is going to be their percentage holding and what is going to be your percentage holding after investment. So, there are these two terms, one is pre-money valuation, another is post-money valuation. So, suppose you have a company, you have developed some prototype. So, there is some value that you have brought on the table. Now, investor comes and makes some evaluation after due diligence, they make evaluation and then they decide that your company is valued say 500, it may be 500,000, 500 lakhs, whatever. I am not putting an unit on this. So, if your valuation is 500 and investors say that okay, I am willing to invest 200. So, total value becomes 700, meaning pre-money valuation plus whatever money the investors bring. So, it is just added because they are bringing money, hard cash. So, 500 is the valuation plus cash. So, just add it up, and post-money valuation is 700. Pre-money valuation means before they bring the money, before they invest the money in the company. Post-money valuation means your company that was there before investment, meaning product or whatever value you had, plus the money that investors bring. So, they bring, suppose in this case 200 whatever. So, it becomes 700. So, post-money value becomes 700. So, founders holding after post-money, meaning after the investors have brought the money. Prior to investment, founders held 100% equity. Now, what is going to be their holding? Their holding is going to be 500 divided by 700, because 700 is a total value, their contribution is 500. So, it is 500 by 700 is equal to 71.43% is their holding, remainder that is 200 by 700 is held by the investors. That is how holding is determined. You can extrapolate that to any complexity and you will finally get it. Now, suppose there is another round of investments, some other investors give say another 700 at some point of time. So, now the new investors, the new value will be, suppose there is no other value addition in between. So, your valuation was 700, the new money coming in is another 700. So, 700 plus 700 is 1400. So, post money valuation is going to be 1400, and the new founders, new investors holding will be 700 divided by 1400, meaning 50%. So, the new investors will demand 50% holding in the company, and the remaining 50% will be shared by earlier investors plus founders. That is how the holding is determined. Hope this is clear. Now, after knowing all this, having said that, there are two distinctive and very important features of preference share. Why I am discussing about preference shares so much? Because that is the preferred instrument or security type in which or using which investors normally invest, unless it is a very matured company. As long as you are in the early stage, you are not like say Flipkart or so, investors will prefer to invest in preference shares. But if you are in the marketplace, you have made lot of money, now the valuation is very high, perhaps investors will be venture capitalists will be interested to invest in equity. They don't prefer investing in equity because of inherent advantage of preference share that we discussed. Now, the two features that I said are important. One is liquidation preference and the other is participating. Liquidation these two are to be understood very clearly, because this is the thing that determines how much money the investors get, how much money the founder gets whenever there is a liquidity event. Meaning, whenever you find a customer to sell your company, you want to distribute the sale proceeds among you as founder and the investors. How much money the investors get, how much money you get. To determine that, we need to understand these two features of preference shares. Liquidation preference tells at the beginning only, they will be writing that this is my liquidation preference. If it is not there, they will say there is no liquidity preference. Now, if there is liquidity preference, it can be first of all 0 liquidity, second may be 1x liquidity, or maybe any number of x, maybe n x, that may be 10 x. What is this x? X is the times of their investment that they will receive at the beginning. Suppose you have sold your company for say 100 crore rupees. Now, suppose they have invested in your company 10 crore rupees. After they have invested 10 crore, you have created a lot of value with this money, and few years later you have sold your company for 100 crores. Now, you want to distribute the money. So, if they have 10x liquidation preference, they are supposed to get 10 times the money they have invested. So, they will go away with 10 crore rupees that they have invested multiplied by 10, 100 crore. So, they will go away with all the 100 crore rupees and you will not get anything, and that is written in the term sheet, or after the term sheet there will be another agreement, it will be written there that our liquidation preference is 10x, meaning whatever we are investing we should get 10 times that. Suppose it is not 10x, but 5x. So, they will get 5 times 10 crore rupees. So, that makes 50 crore. So, out of 100 crore sale proceeds, they are going to take away 50 crore. That is the first part. That is not the end of the story for them. Suppose other than this liquidation preference, their term also says it is participating preference share, meaning that they also participate in equity, even though they have not invested in equity, they have invested only in preference share, but by the very fact that they have written that we have 25% participation, just by writing that they become 25% holder of equity, not equity, but then they get equivalent money even though they don't have equity. So, out of the remaining 50 crore rupees, after taking 50 crore out, 50 crore, only 50 crore is remaining. Out of this 50 crore, they will now demand another 25% of the 50 crore. So, that makes 12.5 crore rupees. So, they will demand another 12.5 crore rupees. So, altogether it will be 62.5 crore rupees that they will get, and the remaining 37.5 crore rupees will be available with the founders. So, liquidation preference is very dangerous, can be very dangerous if the number of times number of x is too large. Suppose it is 1x. In the same example, they take 10 crore rupees first and then they share 25% of the remaining 90 crores. That makes kind of better sense, but this x depends on their comfort and the kind of value that you can project. If you can project to the investors that your company has enormous promise moving forward, you can bargain with the investor and make it 1x or make it 0x, just participating, meaning it is convertible preference share. So, they convert their shares and whatever equity that is converted into proportionately they get money. Suppose it is absolutely equity holding. Suppose the investors hold 25% equity in your company and you sell your company for 100 crore rupees. It is a straightforward calculation that they get 25%, you get 75%, meaning they go away with 25 crore rupees, you go away with 75 crore rupees. That is the whole story. So, many slides moving forward will tell this in more elaboration. Participating preference shares with assumed 1x liquidation preference. So, suppose investors, some investors invest in your company 50 million rupees at a pre-money valuation of 50 million. So, automatically you understand that it is a 50-50, because post money he has 50 million and you have 50 million. Pre-money value is what you are bringing, post money, and then investors are bringing some money. So, your 50 plus their 50 becomes 100. So, you hold 50% and they hold 50% in the equity. Now, suppose after a few years the company is acquired by another company for 250 million. What happens? Let us see that. So, out of this 250 million, suppose this BA means business angel, this means venture capitalist. Either it is a business angel or it is a venture capitalist. Now, suppose the BA is holding participating preference stock, meaning share. He will receive, if it is 1x participation, he will get his money back. Whatever they have invested in your company, they are going to get back the money. Meaning they have invested 50 million, that we have seen in the previous slide, that they have invested 50 million. So, out of this 250 million, 50 million will be set aside for them. What is left is 250 minus 50 is equal to 200 million rupees. Out of the 250, out of the 200 million that is left, they hold 50%, because we have seen that they have a 50-50 preference, means participation. They have 50-50 participation, meaning they hold 50% equity, even though it is not converted, even though they do not hold any equity in your company, but because of the fact that it is 50% participation, they hold 50%. So, they get another 50% of the remaining money is 200. So, what they get is first 50 million that is set aside, then they get another 100 million. So, they get 150 million. What is left? 250 minus 100, only 100. So, founders get just 100 million, whereas investors get 250 million, even though you and they both have invested on a 50-50 basis. Now, suppose it is converted into share or it is convertible preference share, then all these participation and liquidation preference will vanish. What will be left is only the participation part, meaning they hold 50%, you hold 50%, this entire 250 million rupees will be distributed among investors and founders on a 50-50 basis. So, you get 125.5, they get 125.5. There is another clause that is called anti-dilution clause, meaning that suppose an investor invests in your company at a valuation that value your equity share at say 100 rupees a piece. So, their investment is at the rate of 100 rupees per equity share. I have shown you what equity share means. If you have equity share of face value rupees 10, then if somebody is investing 50 million rupees, it is 5 million shares, each value with each of face value rupees 10. So, it becomes 50 million rupees. 5 million multiplied by 10 rupees face value is 50 million. So, the 10 rupees is valued suppose at 100 rupees at some point of time. Say you convert their money at 100 rupees a share, or let us consider that it is at 10 rupees only, and subsequently the operation goes down and then you need more money and your present investor declined to invest further, but you approach to another investors and he or they tell you that we can invest at 8 rupees a share. So, the existing investors is at a kind of a disadvantageous position. So, they will insist that you must issue us sufficient number of shares at a price, so that our total average price of equity becomes 8 rupees or less, not above 8 rupees. That is what is anti-dilution clause. Anti-dilution clause also may say that at any point of time our total holding will not go down below the holding that we have now. If it is 25% at present, that will not be diluted even after second, third, fourth round of investment. So, whenever you are going to attract new investment, accept or receive new investment, you have to issue fresh share to the existing investors if there is an anti-dilution clause that my holding is not going to be diluted under any circumstances. But if they decline or refuse to bring in fresh money to buy more equity share, then of course, you cannot help them. As I mentioned, that liquidation preference may be many times, 1x, 2x, 3x, etc. So, let us see more example of that, and participation is percentage holding. So, these two together actually there are many examples, but then there is another condition, this is called drag along provisions. Like suppose some investors invested money in your company and they do not hold controlling a stake in your company, but there will be another condition called drag along. If that is there, then equity holding has no meaning. I mean, whatever decision they take, the founders have to fall in line. If they say that tomorrow we are going to sell this company to somebody, then founders have to fall in line. They have to agree to sell the company. So, that is what is drag along. Maybe if they say that this product is not good for this company, so let us diversify into another product, you have to fall in line. Here is another comprehensive example of participatory and preference and participating. So, suppose this is another example. Suppose a business angel group invests 50 million for only 25% of a venture. The venture at some point of time is sold for 100 million. Now, there are three scenarios. First scenario, no liquidation preference. Second scenario, 1x liquidity preference. Third scenario, 1x liquidation as well as participation preference. Then how you decide how much money who gets? This is a comprehensive example. If you visit that, you get the whole picture. So, let us move forward and discuss one by one. First one is no liquidity preference. So, the BA group holds 25% of the equity. So, they have no preference, meaning that neither 1x nor 2x nor 3x, meaning that it is almost like they are holding equity. So, they have 25% participation. So, they will get only 25% of the company or the total sale proceeds. So, the first one they get only 25 million rupees, the founder gets the rest of the money, that is 75 million rupees. In the second case, BA group has 1x liquidity preference, but no participation, meaning that they do not hold any equity. So, at the time of liquidation of the company, they get 1x of their money, meaning 1 times the money that they have invested. They have invested 25 or 50 million rupees. So, they will go away with 50 million and the rest 100 out of the 100, rest 50 million will go to the founders. The third case, the BA group negotiates a term that is 1x liquidation, but 25% participation. 1x liquidation, 25% participation, meaning that they will take away 1 times their investment, which is 50 million, and they will share the remainder of the money, 25% of the remainder of the money. So, after they take away 50 million, what is left is only 50 million. So, they take 25% of that is 12.5. So, they get 62.5 million and founders get 37.5 million, the remaining money. Now, let us move slightly forward. Rather than 1x liquidation, suppose the same example, the investors actually have 2x liquidity preference and 25% participation, 2x liquidity preference and 25% participation. So, initially they will take away 2 times the money. What is that? They have invested 50 million. If they take away 2 times, meaning they will take away 100% of the money and founders will get nothing. Now, suppose the founders and the employees holding equity, they actually get nothing. Suppose the venture is not sold for 100 million, suppose it is sold for 400 million. Let us move slightly forward. So, 2x million, 2x participation, 2x preference will give the investors 2 times their 50 million, it will become 100 million. And then participation of 25%, meaning the investor will get 25% of the remainder of the money, that is out of 300 million they will get 25%, that is 75 million. So, they get 175 and founders, employees, they get rest of the money, that is 125 million. 125. So, and at some point of time moving forward, as the company grows and matures, all these preference capital or convertible debt will be converted into equity. Then all those liquidation preference will not be there. All that will be there is participation. Whatever equity they hold, if it is 10%, they hold 10%. If it is 90%, they hold 90%. So, whenever company will be liquidated, they will, if they hold 10%, they will get only 10% of the money proceeds. If they hold 90%, they will receive 90% of the sale proceeds. So, that is how it will be determined. Now, there may be something called convertible. This is normally convertible debt. If there is a convertible debt, means if the investors invest in the form of convertible debt, then this debt have some structure. Is important to know this. One is normally they prefer, why debt first of all, because debt is most senior. First of all, payment will be made to the creditors. So, in the case of liquidation, so they would like to invest in the form of debt. So, if they invest in debt, there will be a condition that on so and so time, whenever we decide or we mutually agree, our debt will be converted into equity. At what rate? That also may be a precondition, that we are investing now say 50 million rupees in your company as debt, and you have to pay interest at the rate of 3% per annum. So, they enjoy the interest, and maybe after 2 years we are going to convert our debt, our 50 million rupees of debt into equity at the rate of say 25 rupees per share, or say let it be 25 rupees per share. So, at the end of 2 years you will convert this debt into equity. Now, suppose you make a valuation after 2 years, and then you find valuation is made for raising more money or something. So, suppose you issue equity shares to other people, say at 30 rupees a share, and then you can always tell the earlier investors that why don't you convert at 30 rupees, because I am getting 30 rupees from the market. But the fact is that you have grown to this 30 rupees per share valuation because of the money that investors gave. So, you actually cannot say that unless nothing is written. If something is written, then obviously you have to follow that. If nothing is written, then you will start bargaining from that point. Now, suppose an angel agrees to invest 6 million rupees in a startup as debt and negotiates the risk justified discount. Okay, I did not discuss the discount. Now, suppose after 2 years you find that your share is selling at say 30 rupees. So, angel or investors may actually have a condition that whenever you raise next round of money, you have to convert our debt into equity at a discount of 20%, meaning that if you are issuing shares at 30 rupees a share, we should be allotted shares at the rate of 24 rupees, 20% discount over the price at which you are selling to other investors. So, they enjoy 20% discount. This also will be written in the agreement. So, a discount rate of, that is how, if it is 100 rupees, they get it at 80 rupees. Now, what are the advantages of convertibles? from the point of view of the company, it is like funding does not dilute your equity. So, even founders also prefers debt, provided they think that their valuation is going to go up very quickly. So, rather than diluting the equity now, they can dilute the equity at a much higher valuation. So, they get more money at a higher valuation, their dilution will be less. They can avoid estimating pre-money valuation, because when debt is given, no valuation is done. So, if money is obtained in preference share, then valuation has to be done, and valuation always is a tricky issues that both parties want to avoid. Can avoid bias of early valuation, obviously, then less processing and quick disbursal, meaning that you agree that I need 6 million rupees, they agree that okay, 3% is the interest and my discount rate should be 20% or 30% or 10%, done, and then you get the money. So, quickness of disbursement also is an advantage. Disadvantage, you may have to pay interest, whereas you do not have to pay any interest on equity, may lead to higher dilution for the same, because if there is a discount rate already inbuilt in the agreement, then you have to allot equity share to them at a discount. So, dilution becomes more compared to if you sell the shares to the market to other investors. Then if there is a cap on pre-money, suppose they say that 20% discount is fine, but under any circumstances I am not going to buy shares above 15 rupees. So, then it becomes 50% discount. So, there may be a cap beyond which they will not invest, meaning their 6 million rupees has to be converted at a price not higher than 15 rupees, but if you convert that at below 15 rupees, then you have to give a discount of 20%. So, that makes it kind of more adverse. So, that is what is cap. So, we do not have to discuss any more. I think this should be the end of this session. Thank you very much.